Donna's leapt in before me. You're listening to Art Dust with Glenda Gibson and
Donna Druin, hello, you
Donna
beautiful people.
Druin. And today we have with us Verity Hayhow, who is the youngest person we've ever
Yep.
had in our podcast. She's in her 20s, very young, a Gen Z person. But she's also a first for us because she's the first person that we haven't met in person. We've met her over Zoom, and she
Yeah.
is the mutual friend of a friend of ours in here in the village, Lynn Wood. But we haven't actually met her in person. She lives in London,
Yeah.
which is way away from the Midlands where we are. So yeah, so welcome, Verity. It's so good to have you on here.
It is. It's
Um,
lovely to have you here.
yeah, so Verity it will be going off on mission in to Japan. So we're going to ask you a bit more about that in a minute. And she's also an artist, which is mostly why we're interviewing her, but she's a Christian artist. So, Verity, where will we start? First of all, well, just tell us a bit about this mission to Japan. Start with that and we'll go back to the art.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Glenda and Donna, for having me on the podcast. I'm Verity, and like Glenda was just saying, so I'm a missionary. I'm in the process actually of going out on mission to Japan, to Tokyo, where I will be serving with a mission team called Community Art Tokyo. So they're a team of artists living and working in Tokyo and using the arts to reach people in Japan about the gospel, with the gospel rather. Um, Not everybody knows this, but Japan is actually the second largest unreached people group in the world, meaning like unreached by the gospel, basically, that Japanese people in daily life have very little opportunity to hear about Jesus, to hear about the gospel. And so it's a place in the world that I'm very passionate about because of its arts culture, but also because there's like this kind of area of the world where so few people know who Jesus is and have the chance to hear about him. And so I think it's a place in the world that is really important to be there as a missionary as well as an artist.
So
Yeah.
what sort of things does your team do?
We do a range of things. They're all arts based. So we do a lot of events based stuff. We run like a monthly community dinner where people come in and they talk about their work because they're artists. We run concerts, exhibitions, all sorts of things. And all of that stuff is kind of about building a community of people around the arts and using that as the chance to show people a Christian witness, to engage people with like ideas of faith. Particularly in a big city like Tokyo, it's 35 million people. It's an enormous city, and it's easy to kind of get lost in it. It's easy to feel disconnected. It's easy to feel like you don't have a lot of deep personal connections. And so I think it's quite powerful to be able to come into that and start building a community of people. Um, and then we do a lot of publishing. And if you're on YouTube, you can actually see the books that I'm waving around. So we publish in English and Japanese.
Oh, yeah, put it in front of your
These
face.
are,
Oh, Hidden
there we go.
Beauty. Right.
Okay, I
Yeah.
think you can see that if you're on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hidden Beauty. And then here's another one that we published recently. So you've got Hidden Beauty, and then you've got Tsunami Violin. This is a kid's book that we published
Oh, yeah.
last
Yeah.
year. I'm trying to show it to the camera and it doesn't want to focus on it. So we publish in English and Japanese, and those resources are all about Christian faith, the arts, Japanese culture, engaging with all of these different kind of themes, helping people think through these different identities of like, what does it mean to be Christian and Japanese? What does it mean to be Christian and an artist? I mean, I'm sure that that's something that a lot of people listening have had to sort of think about. Um, so yeah, we publish in English and Japanese for an international audience, but also for Japanese
Yeah.
people.
Did
Uh,
you do
um,
the covers for those? Did you do the artwork for the covers?
yes.
Right, because I
Yeah,
really
I always
love
forget to say this.
because the one that's the violin tsunami. What was that one called exactly?
Mm. Tsunami violin.
So tsunami
Oh,
violin.
Sorry.
violin.
Yes,
Yes.
so the wave is the violin is on top of a wave, but it's that Japanese sort of wave, the way the sort of like fingers
Yeah.
come down in the froth after that
Yeah.
very famous Japanese work of art, isn't it?
Yes.
Very
Hokusai.
cool.
Yeah,
Hokusai, yeah.
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 Yeah, I wasn't the illustrator on this project, but I did do the cover. Holly Rose Wallace was our illustrator, and she did this really. I love this wave as well. I think it's a really cool reference to the Hokusai.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so you're I know in some of your other advertising and work, you've got like the koi carp and things like that that
Yes.
are very Japanese. So
Yeah.
you're not doing it, you're not trying to be a Japanese artist, but you are sort of
Mm.
linking to the culture through your art. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I've always had an interest in Japanese art, so I think that I am quite influenced by that stuff. But then also the work that my team does, like we work very closely with Japanese artists. So the team is mostly Americans and then myself. But we work very closely with Japanese people to make sure that the stuff that we're putting out is actually for a Japanese audience. Um,
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, whether you worked with to what extent you work with the locals.
Yeah.
yeah,
To,
so all of our translating into Japanese is done like with the help of a Japanese translator. But also, actually, I have a kind of funny story. So this book here, Hidden Beauty, which I'm
Yeah.
just holding up to the camera, it shows a shadow of a ikebana, which is a Japanese flower arrangement, kind of projected onto a wall. And this book, Hidden Beauty, was all about Japanese aesthetics and how can we say something about God through Japanese aesthetics? Like how are they kind of reflecting the glory of God in some way? And this actually wasn't the original image that we were going to have on the cover. So we had this picture of a woman like in a kimono and she's got her hands outstretched. It was a picture taken at a conference that we'd run. Um, and it was going to be like that shadow onto a wall. So a shadow of that woman onto the wall. And we had the cover like almost completely done. It was almost there. And then my team leader showed the picture to his translator, and she was like, the way that that kimono is hanging, it looks like she's undressing.
Oh
She was like
no.
taking her clothes off. And the book's called Hidden Beauty, so it sounded like some kind of
oh,
Oh
I don't know,
no.
okay.
like
Yeah.
naughty book. So we had to ditch the cover at
Oh
like
dear.
the final stages of designing it. And we went with the flowers, which I'm very happy with the cover, but it was kind of
Yeah.
funny that we hadn't spotted that until we showed it to the translator.
Yeah. Oh, so that's
Yeah.
I know the Japanese culture's got there's a lot to do with honor, and
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
can really easily not be honoring,
Yes.
just by simple little things. Yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot about Japan, but I do know that, the way you say
Hmm.
hello and the way you dress and all sorts of things are really
Yeah,
culturally important. They matter.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think that there's a very strong sense in Japanese culture from what I've observed of like how you should live, how you should behave in society. It's very much about like how you are perceived by other people. Are you kind of approved? Are you accepted by the whole? Um, and I think that in that context, actually being a Christian can be quite difficult because being a Christian in Japan makes you really different. Um, so Japan, I said earlier that it's the second largest unreached people group in the world. 0.5% of the Japanese population would call themselves Christians. So being a Christian in Japan, like you are part of a very small group of people.
Yeah.
Um, And being a Christian also means that you're saying no to a lot of the cultural religious practices that other Japanese people are doing. You're saying no to Buddhism, you're saying no to Shintoism, that's the folk religion of Japan. Um, and I think it's really hard. I think it's really hard to say, I'm not going to do that stuff. I'm not going to, it affects like family holidays, it affects
Yeah.
like, all of these kind of events throughout the year. You're saying, oh, I'm not going to do that. Um, and so I think actually the arts play this really vital role in creating a Christian culture. If art is kind of the way that we shape a culture, art is sort of one of the ways that we tell who we are, right? Sometimes as
Yes.
individuals,
Yeah.
sometimes as a group. Then I think Christians investing in the arts, Christians making art themselves, is part of how we begin to tell our stories as a
Yes.
Christian community. And I think
Completely.
for Japanese Christians, then it's also part of the way that they start to tell the story of Japanese Christianity.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is very much,
So,
yeah, because well, yeah, and when you start when you become a Christian and you're an artist beforehand, your art becomes very prescribed biblically. Like, so you literally drawing Bible verses, and you
Mm,
just, and then as you grow, as you mature, I don't know how to put
mm,
this. You start to see that actually, your work is your work, but it's still very
yeah,
much, yeah. It changes, but it must be
yeah,
quite a culture shock for a Japanese person to go from, and yet the work they would produce would be very different
mm,
to show
yeah.
because
yes,
the symbolism would be different. The things that they would see in the Bible as meaning the same things
yes,
would be very different.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that sorry, Glenda, were you gonna step in there? No. Um, I think there's Japanese arts culture is so rich. There's so much there. There's like hundreds of years of this really incredible arts culture that has been preserved. The Japanese government has put a lot of effort into kind of preserving like regional crafts and um, like the skills and the knowledge of craftsmen being
Yeah,
passed down through generations. Um, and so there's this really rich arts culture, but it's an arts culture that has been so shaped by Buddhism and Shintoism, and not by Christianity. So I've been studying Japanese art history at the moment. I've been doing like a short course with the V&A Museum. Um, and it's so interesting how like every art form that they lecture on, it'll be like, and this is like this craftsman was really like he was referencing Buddhism here. He was really passionate about Buddhism, and so this was like what he brought into his work and stuff. And underlying all of this really beautiful artwork, then the kind of philosophies, the symbolism is all very religious, very spiritual. And so I think there has to be a lot of thinking done about like how can Japanese people, how can Japanese artists um, still retain and celebrate this beautiful gift that God has given, this beautiful arts culture, um, while also creating work that is kind of reflecting the fact that they are Christians.
yeah,
And I think there's an important message there about like what redemption is, that redemption is not throwing stuff away. It's not just like, oh, Jesus doesn't throw like us away. He doesn't throw away like the whole
yeah.
person. He's like, I'm done with you because you're a sinner. But redemption is about like purifying and making something better and taking the broken thing and making it whole.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, I think there's something there in Japanese arts culture that absolutely can be redeemed.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. They almost like prefer something that's broken and redeemed than something that's new in the first place, don't they?
yeah.
Yeah.
They like things
Like
that are
Kintsugi.
quite imperfect. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
Yeah.
Japan.
yeah,
Go on,
Which
sorry.
so they are already on the page really when it
Yeah,
comes to redemption and taking something that's broken and making it more beautiful.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think kintsugi is like a really popular
Yeah.
Yeah,
metaphor, I think, in Japanese culture of this idea of like kintsugi. If you're listening and you don't know what kintsugi is, it's when you break a piece of pottery and then um, it's repaired using gold, basically. Um, and you can look up these really beautiful images of like pots and
Mm.
bowls and stuff, and they've been repaired and they have like these kind of sort of veins of gold running through them.
Yeah.
And that is a really powerful expression of like, yeah, God kind of does this to us as well. He takes these broken people
yeah,
and
Hmm.
he loves us, he gives himself for us. And somehow through that brokenness and through that repair, through that sacrifice, we are even more beautiful than we were before.
yeah,
Um, so I think there's some really it's I think it's one of those ways that I think people sometimes look at Japanese culture if they know much about Japanese culture and the history of Christianity there, and they say, well, Japanese culture is just this like spiritually dead place. Christianity can't take root there. Missionaries have
Mm.
tried and they failed. And I think that we can look at any culture, we can look at any people group, and we can still see the image of God. We can still see
yeah,
like that great story coming through.
yeah.
And I think in Japanese culture, we can see it reflected in these like kind of artistic metaphors.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah, they really value there's a printmaker I follow who goes out to Japan regularly, and she was saying that she had to claim that her husband was they really defer to a male in the house. And she was saying that so
Hmm.
she said my husband she had to go to the guy and said, can you please teach me how to do this, because my husband will be disappointed if I don't learn how to. And she said it was a matter of deference and honoring the family structure and understanding their structure. So yes, the whole thing about redeeming and being part of the family, it's massive. It is a big part of their culture.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Verity,
yeah,
we've not
definitely.
talked about your art. I know that you're
No.
writing a book.
Mm,
Do you want to just talk about what sort of art you do?
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I didn't talk about that, did I? Yeah, so I'm a graphic designer and illustrator. I work a bit in publishing. I work a bit in illustration. I'm a freelancer. Um, and so kind of, I guess that's what I do professionally. But my first love has always, I think, been illustration and telling a story. Um, so at the moment, I'm working on this graphic novel called Moon Creature, which is of my own devising. I started writing it last year, and now I'm working on the illustrations. I'm painting in gouache, which is really I love gouache as a medium. I think it's just really, the pigments are so vibrant. Um, so so Moon Creature is this story about a character. She's called the Moon Creature, and she's kind of like this, sort of like a cat and a rabbit, but also kind of like a spider monkey at the same time. She's like this weird little sort of alien. She lives in the sky with her best friend, the moon. But one day they have this horrible fight, and the Moon Creature is so angry that she leaves and she goes to be with the people of the earth, who she has been observing for a very long time and kind of admiring who they are from a distance. And so the book follows her experiences on the earth, her kind of disillusionment with people, but then how she finds people to love again, and she learns how to live sort of as without her identity being entirely um, built and reliant upon this one other person. Um, so yeah, it's been a really fun project. It's definitely been a challenge. I wasn't writing before I wrote this, so getting back into writing after like leaving it behind from when I was like 7 years old or something. It's been fun, but it's been a challenge, I think.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
this sounds so exciting.
That
Such
sounds
a fun thing to be doing.
So
Thank you.
who's your so what has inspired you to create a creature? So like who are you influenced by when you think about artwork? Who do you like to look at?
Mm, well, I said that I'm really influenced by Japanese
Yeah,
arts culture. I love um Ghibli, which is like
yeah.
the most generic thing to say about, oh, you love Japanese arts, oh, you love Ghibli.
You're really,
Yeah,
yeah,
sure you do, whatever. So does everyone. Um, I love Ghibli. I think something that I love about Ghibli is that there are these really beautiful stories with these like incredible visuals. And they're often very, very cute and wholesome and like very like they
yeah,
really touch your heart. They're very sort of genuine stories. Um, but something that I find really interesting about Ghibli is there's always something a little bit creepy in the films as well. No one ever talks about this, but there's always something in the film that is a little bit creepy, a little bit like too weird. And I quite like that. I think it like without those things and the stories could be a bit saccharine.
yeah.
And it really grounds the films. And I actually like that as a sort of way of making art.
Yes. Yeah.
Which might sound bad to be like, yeah, I love like a story that's nice, but it's also weird and gross. But
Yeah.
Moon Creature is not gross. She's very cute, but she's a bit like weird looking.
Yes, his
Yeah.
characters can be a bit weird looking. I was thinking about Howl's Moving Castle, and there's a character in there who reminds me of some sort of like weird blob, but it's
Yeah,
not. Yeah, yeah, and it's not. You wouldn't say it was a pretty character, but against this very
yeah,
beautiful landscape, and then
yeah,
you've got really pretty tea houses and very yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
There's
Mm,
some very
yeah,
very lovely things.
yeah,
mm.
yeah. Like I always think of Spirited Away and No Face, who's the sort of shadow character with the mask.
Oh
And at one
yes,
point in the film,
you can't take money from him.
right,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly, he becomes this like monstrous creature, like because he becomes so greedy. Um, and I think it's interesting that that's in the film because it's like it's a bit of a scary moment, but it creates a sort of balance in the film, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And actually, I would like to talk a bit more about your art, but what I do want to know is when are you going to Japan and how long are you there?
Yes. So the plan is for me to be heading out at the end of this year. I'm going with a mission organization called Japan Christian Link, who are a British Japanese mission organization, and I will be working with Community Arts Tokyo. Um, so I plan to be heading out for an initial 2-year term, but
Wow.
potentially with a view to longer term work. I was in Tokyo last year for 3 months working with community arts, so I've kind of already done that stint, but this is a longer term stint.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. So I know that so a part of our link with you is to support you in prayer and also try and come up with some financial support as well. So if people
yeah,
want to support a young missionary in prayer
yep,
or financially, there will be a email in the show notes. So it's
yes,
Verity at verityhayhow.com, but it'll be in the show
that's
notes so
right.
you can find it. And
Yeah.
also a link to her newsletter. So you
Yes,
know what to pray
Ah,
for
yeah.
and
yeah,
and you'll be able to help her. So yeah. Well, thank you,
yeah.
Verity. That was a fab conversation. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you guys. That was lovely. So great to talk to you.
Okay.
Yes.
Bye bye.
Oh.